Hello and welcome back to sax.co.uk. I'm here with my good friend George, and today we are going to be going through every single wind synth that is available on the market. We know that many of you feel like these are sticks of misery forged in the deep depths of hell. And for many of you, you don't actually have any idea what this is.
It looks like some modern oboe.
Karaoke thing? It's to drive a car.
Yes, and there's also lots of in-depth reviews online already, but this video is going to give you a brief snapshot of all the ones that we have in stock and on the market really, and yeah, allow you to choose which one would best suit your needs.
Okay, so the most affordable wind synthesizer on the market is the Roland Mini AE-01. So when you pick it up, initially it does feel a bit toy-like, a bit plasticky. It does only have 6 built-in sounds.
Yeah, Jamie's right when it comes to the actual how robust the instrument is, and you may well also have spotted that it doesn't have all the keys that a normal saxophone will have, so you will have to get used to the alternative fingerings, but if you're new to this kind of thing and you've never used one of them before, it's really quick and easy to get started, isn't it?
It can actually do quite a few fancy things considering the price point. You've got Bluetooth connectivity, which allows you to connect it to the app. You can change the parameters of the sounds you have on board. You can play along to music, and it even has lessons which will score you to see how well you're getting on. Probably the most handy feature, if you're a little bit more advanced, is the MIDI capabilities, where you can connect it to a DAW of your choice and you can lay down some tracks with it, which is great fun. Next on our list is the Roland AE-05, and initially when you pick this up you feel a bit more weight, and generally all round it just feels better quality. It's got many more knobs on the back, which just allows you to get to all the options a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's also got 11 built-in sounds including percussion. If you want to play some drums on that, you go for it. Another thing you might have noticed here, it does have all the buttons which a normal saxophone will have, which is great when it actually comes to transitioning between playing a normal sax and this, and it allows you to be slightly more dynamic and expressive with your playing due to the bite control. What that is it allows you with your embouchure to control the actual tuning like you would do on a normal sax mouthpiece.
Within the Roland app you've got a few more options, so you actually have quite a few additional sounds which will actually play out of your iPad or your iPhone. You can connect it to a DAW of your choice. So yeah, if you're looking to get a wind synthesizer that doesn't break the bank too much but does have, you know, a fair bit of functionality, this one might be the one for you. So next up on our list is the 2 Akai EWI instruments that we have in front of us here. Initially when you pick these up you feel that it's a serious bit of kit. You do get a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to the Akai EWI'S. The downside is it's almost like a totally brand new instrument to learn.
Yeah, it is. It's not something that you're going to pick up straight after playing the saxophone and think, oh my god, this is so easy. It's, like Jamie said, brand new instrument. You've got to be able to set some time aside to really kind of hone in on how to use these, don't you?
You do. It's very rewarding though when you do, because there's so many features. The Akai Solo here has 200 built-in sounds, and the 5000 even more, with the ability to add lots of sounds as well.
Yeah, and also one of the main differences, I think you said earlier on, that this is more for kind of home use, isn't it? With as it's got the built-in speaker there, which is actually one of the better built-in speakers out of all the models that we've got in front of you. And the casing on this model here is a little bit more robust, as you'd expect for an instrument that is going to be used primarily for gigs, isn't it? Going through a PA system with the output here.
So other slight differences, this has a screen on it, making it a little bit more intuitive to use, whereas the 5000 just has a very old school kind of LED style one. So I would say that if you're willing to put the work in, then these can be very rewarding instruments, but just do be aware that they can take a little bit of time to get used to. Okay, so next up on our list is the Roland AE-10, and this is Roland's first wind synthesizer, which they brought out a few years ago now. And initially when I picked it up again after handling the Akai EWI'S, it does feel very cheap and plasticky, a little bit more toy-like, whereas the Akais, they feel really professional, don't they? But what this has over and above the Akai instruments is just how usable it is. For so many years, people were coming in, trying out the Akai EWI'S, just going, oh, it's too difficult, I just can't be bothered to learn that. Whereas with this, they can play it instantly.
Yeah, and one of the main reasons that it's so easy is because of the keys here. It's like the AE-05, it's just set up like a normal saxophone, so switching between the two is very simple. There are a lot more sounds on this this model too. If we spin it round, we can see that, I'll twist it this way, there's a nice little screen here for you to choose your sounds a lot more easily, and there's also a pitch bend here accompanied by a lovely thumb rest here, a rubber thumb rest, which is just so much easier for a while.
Yeah, because it's a few years old, the technology definitely does feel a little bit dated now, the Roland AE-20, which we'll mention about next. So personally, I would say if you can spend the extra money, go for one of the newer Rolands because the technology is so much better on one of those. Okay, so next up we've got the Roland AE-20, and this is the latest wind synthesizer in their range, and straight away you just feel the difference in quality, don't you, over the AE-10. It just feels a lot more solid, a lot more professional, and if I were out gigging, I would much rather take this with me. Straight away you can just see the improvement in the technology from over the years. You've got a much bigger screen, the pitch bend is a lot more intuitive and nicer to use, and you've got a lot more knobs on here as well, just for changing the categories so they're easier to access if you're playing live, and generally just the play it's a lot nicer, isn't it?
Yeah, also I think it's worth mentioning that the keys here, they're actually indented a bit more like you would find on the pearls on a real saxophone, so that's quite a nice touch, literally. Yeah. Yeah, the side keys as well, they just feel a little bit more robust. Yeah, built-in sound. Oh, the scene categories, that's what you have on the back here. So there's ample sounds to go along with each bank of category you got there.
Yeah, you've literally got hundreds of sounds, and you can also connect it to the Roland Cloud, where you can upload even more sounds onto it. And as you'd expect from a modern wind synth, you've also got Bluetooth, so you can use the Roland apps to connect to, where you can change the parameters of the sounds. There's an effects chain, so you can add in more effects if you want to. So I almost feel like the possibilities are endless with something like this. And it just feels great to play, doesn't it? Next up, we've got the Yamaha YDS-150, which has been harder to get hold of than a Furby at Christmas in 1998, and trust me, they were very hard to get hold of. The most revolutionary thing about it is pretty obvious. It actually utilises the keywork from a saxophone, which makes it such a joy to play, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does indeed. I mean, when I first picked this up yesterday, genuinely the first time I've ever played it, I was very pleased to see that you had your auxiliary F sharps and your high F sharps there as well, and your front top F key. It just makes playing the whole thing just like a saxophone, really. On top of that, you've got a real mouthpiece, so you actually it feels a lot more natural rather than playing on one of the you know, the plastic ones that come with the Rolands. So yeah, what Yamaha really tried to do here is make the most of the samples that they've got. So all your alto saxes, flutes, baritones, you name it, they do sound very good. And another thing is this is going to be great for practicing as well because of the key positions which I've just mentioned.
Yeah, so it's key to point out that this is really, I believe, aimed at people wanting to practice the saxophone, I'd say, in that most of the sounds are instrument emulations. There's not so many wind synth sounds on there.
It's really geared towards the sax players.
Exactly, so as a practice tool, this is, apart from the EMEO, this is probably by far the best, I would say. Yeah. If you're looking for something to practice on, obviously the sounds are great, you've got the connectivity with the app, then this is certainly going to be the one for you. This is the SYLPHYO. The SYLPHYO's USP is that it's very expressive in that it's got a motion sensor on board. So when you move it, either in a circular motion or up or down, it actually changes the expression of the instrument, whether that's a pitch bend, changing the LFO, or vibrato. So it's a very interesting bit of kit. You'll see that it's a very simple design with the keys not laid out like a saxophone, so it can be a little bit more tricky to get the hang of.
Yeah, there's just as Jamie said, there's a small indents here. It's pretty easy to find your fingers. On the back it's a little bit more tricky. There's a few more to get your fingers round. Only thing that I would say, which is I'm not a biggest fan of about the SYLPHYO, is the menu here. It's quite small, but the main point is it's quite tricky to navigate to begin with, but once you get your head around it, that's fine. Also, it doesn't have a built-in speaker, so you will have to be plugged into some sort of PA, but there is a headphone jack here, which you can use to practice as well.
You can also buy an additional SYLPHYO link, which allows you to play this completely wirelessly, so you can send the signal to your interface or to your mixing desk PA and play it totally wirelessly, which is cool. So the SYLPHYO, I think it's a good one for nerds, isn't it? Because there's some cool little functions in there. Using it as a MIDI controller, there's lots of options for you there. So yeah, an interesting bit of kit, maybe not the easiest to use, but good fun nonetheless. So here we have the Roland Aerophone Pro AE-30, and this is Roland's flagship model. When you initially pick this up, you certainly feel like this is a professional bit of kit. It's got a metal casing, it just looks and feels fantastic. You'll look at it and think, well, that's very similar to the AE-20, and actually it is. It's essentially the same thing, but this has some additional features on it. So you've got a motion sensor inside here, so you can actually move it in a similar way to the SYLPHYO and get some different effects. You've got the 5-pin MIDI outputs there. You've actually also got the option to upload more sounds onto it from the Roland Cloud than the AE-20, but otherwise you've got the immersive Roland synth sounds, which are just absolutely fantastic. Like, you can stick some headphones on these and get totally lost, can't you?
Yeah, my favourite thing about this is the synth sounds here, your pads and your bass synths. It kind of reminds me of their flagship sounds on their older keyboards. It's really kind of, it makes the grade when it comes to those sounds. If you're looking for top of the range wind synthesizer, by Roland, this is certainly the one you want to be looking at.
No, I am not holding up an actual saxophone. This is a wind synthesizer. So some of you may have seen this. If you haven't, this is the EMEO, and it's taken the industry by storm, and we have sold an unbelievable amount of these to a number of players that I believe have been waiting for a product like this, something that utilizes the actual saxophone keywork. We obviously spoke about the Yamaha earlier, utilizing the keywork, but it is made of plastic, so it does feel quite different, whereas this is the body of an actual saxophone.
Yeah, and this is my favourite by far. There is absolutely no difference in the action on this saxophone compared to a normal saxophone. Very positive feel. It's actually spring-loaded like all of the other real saxophone would be, so when you put it down it comes back up. Even sounds the same. So yeah, it's like having a real saxophone, but it's not going to be making all that noise, because I know there's going to be a lot of you who are trying to practice at early hours in the day or later on in the day, and you don't want to be disturbing neighbours, family and friends, whatever, in the house. So it's a perfect little tool to have. You've also got the option to have a real mouthpiece on there as well. And one thing I did notice when I first played it, there is a little bit of back pressure as well, so it's not like you're just blowing down an endless tube and running out of breath like you would do on a normal sax. It does push back with you, so it's a bit more realistic in that way.
So it's worth noting that this doesn't have a built-in speaker, it doesn't have a screen, so some of the technology in that regard isn't quite as intuitive to use, so you will be connecting this to your computer, your iPad, your iPhone, to get the sounds, because the sounds actually also aren't built into the unit. You have to use an external source. But to be honest with you, I think that's a small price to pay considering just how fantastic this feels and how quick and instant it is to play. The latency is great as well, isn't it? Like it just feels very immediate. And when you're phrasing, you're going to be phrasing exactly like you are on a saxophone, whereas with a lot of the other models, you're going to be making compromises because the keys are in different places, aren't you, really? Exactly. So this is a really, obviously, high-tech bit of kit. They partnered with a company called Respiro to make the software, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And I can see exactly why we've sold so many of these. We hope you've enjoyed the video and it's been useful to see all the different wind synthesizers on the market. So you'll notice that some of them are better for practicing on, some of them just great to have sheer fun on, and others for real professional applications. With so many on the market, there's never been a better time to buy a wind synthesizer.
Yes, indeed. And also, don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video. And can any of you work out what songs we were playing?
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Goodbye.